Marcus Wellington sat in the back seat of the black car as it moved through the busy streets of New York City. He looked out the window at the tall buildings passing by. At 52 years old, Marcus had seen many things in his life. He had built a technology company from nothing and turned it into something worth billions of dollars. But success had not changed who he was inside. He still remembered growing up poor in Detroit. He still remembered his mother working 3 jobs to feed him and his sisters. Today, Marcus was flying to London for a business meeting. He wore his favorite clothes for traveling, comfortable jeans, a gray hoodie, and white sneakers. Some people told him he should dress fancy since he was so rich, but Marcus did not care about showing off. He liked being comfortable. He liked being himself. The car stopped at the airport entrance. Marcus thanked his driver and grabbed his small black suitcase. He walked into the busy terminal building. People rushed in every direction. Children cried. Announcements echoed from speakers overhead. Marcus made his way to the first-class check-in counter. The woman behind the desk smiled warmly when she saw his ticket. "Good morning, Mr. Wellington," she said. "Have a wonderful flight to London." Marcus smiled back and thanked her. He went through security without any problems. His gate was far away, so he walked for 10 minutes through the airport. When he finally reached gate 47, he sat down to wait. He pulled out his phone and answered some emails. An hour passed quickly. When boarding started, Marcus stood up with the other first-class passengers. He walked down the jet bridge and stepped onto the plane. The aircraft was huge and new. The first-class cabin had only 12 seats. Each seat was wide and covered in soft leather. Marcus found his seat by the window in row 3. He put his suitcase in the overhead bin and sat down. The seat felt like a comfortable chair in a living room. A flight attendant walked past him without saying hello. She was a white woman who looked about 38 years old. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight. Her name tag said Jennifer Morrison. Marcus noticed she did not smile at him. But he did not think much about it at first. Maybe she was just busy or having a bad day. Marcus buckled his seatbelt and looked out the window. He watched the workers loading bags into the plane below. More passengers came into the first-class cabin. Jennifer greeted each of them with a big smile. She helped an older white man put his bag away. She brought a white woman in a business suit a glass of champagne before the woman even asked for it. She laughed at something a young white couple said. But when Jennifer walked past Marcus again, her face changed. Her smile disappeared. She did not look at him. Marcus felt something strange in his chest. He had felt this feeling before many times in his life. It was the feeling of being invisible. The feeling of not mattering. The plane filled up quickly. Soon all the first-class seats were taken. Jennifer moved through the cabin offering drinks to passengers. Marcus watched as she stopped at every seat except his. She asked people what they wanted. She made jokes. She seemed happy and friendly with everyone. But she walked past Marcus 3 times without stopping. Marcus raised his hand politely when she walked by the 4th time. "Excuse me," he said in a quiet, respectful voice. "Could I please have a glass of water?" Jennifer stopped walking. She turned to look at him. Her eyes were cold. "I'll get to you when I have time," she said. Her voice was not friendly at all. Then she walked away to help another passenger. Marcus felt his face grow hot. The man sitting across the aisle had noticed everything. He was a white man with gray hair wearing an expensive suit. He looked at Marcus with surprise and concern in his eyes. Marcus gave him a small smile that said, "It's okay, I'm used to this," but inside Marcus felt hurt and angry. He had paid over $8,000 for this first-class ticket. He had done nothing wrong. He had been polite and quiet. Why was this woman treating him this way? Deep down, Marcus knew the answer. He had lived 52 years as a black man in America. He understood racism when he saw it. 20 minutes passed. The plane started moving away from the gate. Jennifer brought warm towels to all the other passengers. She gave them menus for the meal service. She asked if anyone needed anything. But she did not bring Marcus a towel. She did not give him a menu. She acted like his seat was empty. Finally, Marcus pressed the call button above his head. A small light came on. Jennifer was at the front of the cabin talking to another flight attendant. She looked back and saw the light above Marcus's seat. She rolled her eyes. Marcus saw it clearly. She said something to the other flight attendant, and they both looked at him. Then Jennifer slowly walked toward him. "Yes?" she asked. Her voice was annoyed and tired. "I'm sorry to bother you," Marcus said calmly. But I still haven't received any water, and I don't have a menu. Jennifer crossed her arms. We're very busy, she said. First-class passengers can be very demanding. Marcus felt confused. He had only asked for water. Once. That was not demanding. I understand you're busy, he said. I just need water and a menu when you have a moment. Jennifer stared at him for a long second. Fine, she said. She walked away without another word. The man across the aisle leaned toward Marcus. That's not right, he whispered. She's been rude to you this whole time. Marcus nodded. Thank you for noticing, he said quietly. Jennifer came back 5 minutes later. She practically threw a plastic cup of water onto Marcus's tray table. Water splashed over the side. She dropped a menu on his lap without looking at him. Then she walked away again. Marcus looked down at the menu. It was wet from the spilled water. A woman sitting 2 rows behind Marcus had been watching everything. Her name was Sarah Chen. She was a lawyer from California. Sarah could not believe what she was seeing. This flight attendant was clearly treating Marcus differently than everyone else. And Sarah was pretty sure she knew why. She quietly took out her phone and opened the camera app. She wanted to record what was happening in case things got worse. Marcus tried to focus on his work. He pulled out his laptop and opened some files. He had an important presentation to prepare for his London meeting, but he found it hard to concentrate. He felt the eyes of other passengers on him. He felt embarrassed even though he had done nothing wrong. He felt small in his big, comfortable seat. Jennifer walked through the cabin again. She smiled at a young white woman and asked if her seat was comfortable. She helped an older man adjust his reading light. She brought extra pillows to the couple near the front. But when she reached Marcus's row, she walked past quickly without looking at him. The plane took off smoothly and climbed into the sky. New York City got smaller below. Soon they were above the clouds in bright sunshine. The seatbelt sign turned off. Jennifer and the other flight attendants started preparing the meal service. Marcus could smell food cooking. His stomach growled. He had not eaten breakfast before leaving home. Jennifer pushed a cart through the cabin. She stopped at each row and served passengers their meals. The food looked delicious. There was salmon with rice or chicken with vegetables or a vegetarian pasta option. Each meal came with a salad, bread, and a small dessert. Passengers thanked Jennifer as she served them. She smiled and told them to enjoy their meals. When Jennifer reached Marcus's row, something strange happened. She looked right at him, then looked away. She started to push her cart past his seat without stopping. Excuse me, Marcus said, louder this time. I'd like to order my meal, please. Jennifer stopped. She turned to face him. Her face showed clear annoyance. What do you want? She asked. Marcus stayed calm. He kept his voice polite. Could I please have the salmon? Jennifer let out a long breath like Marcus was causing her a big problem. You'll get what we have left, she said. Her words were sharp and cold. Marcus felt his heart beat faster. This was not normal service. This was not how anyone should be treated. And certainly not how a first-class passenger should be treated. He looked at Jennifer's face and saw something there that made him sad and angry at the same time. He saw contempt, he saw disgust. He saw hate. I'm sorry, Marcus said carefully, but I paid for this ticket just like everyone else. I should be able to choose my meal option. Jennifer's face turned red. Her eyes got narrow. Listen, she said in a low, mean voice. Some people don't belong in first class. You should just be grateful for whatever you get. The words hung in the air like poison. Several passengers gasped. The man across the aisle stood up halfway from his seat. Sarah Chen in the back raised her phone higher and made sure she was recording. Marcus sat very still. His hands gripped the armrests of his seat. He had heard words like this before in his life. But they always hurt. They always cut deep. Marcus made a decision in that moment. He would not let this go. Not this time. Not anymore. Marcus took a slow, deep breath. He had learned long ago that staying calm was important when facing discrimination. Getting angry would only make things worse. People would call him aggressive or difficult. They would say he was the problem, not the person treating him badly. So Marcus kept his voice steady and quiet. I would like to speak with your supervisor, please, he said to Jennifer. Jennifer laughed. It was not a nice laugh. It was mean and mocking. I am the supervisor for this cabin, she said. And I already told you what you're getting. If you don't like it, you can file a complaint after we land. The man across the aisle could not stay quiet anymore. His name was Robert Patterson. He was a businessman from Boston. "This is unacceptable," Robert said loudly. "I've been watching you ignore this man for the past hour. You've been rude and dismissive to him while treating the rest of us well. It's obvious what's happening here." Jennifer's head snapped toward Robert. "Sir, please mind your own business," she said. "I'm doing my job." "No, you're not," Robert said. He was getting angrier. "You're discriminating against this passenger. I saw you skip him when offering drinks. You threw water at him, and now you're refusing to serve him a proper meal. That's not doing your job. That's being cruel." Other passengers started paying attention. An older woman 2 rows up turned around in her seat. A young couple stopped talking and listened. Sarah Chen kept her phone camera pointed at Jennifer and Marcus. She made sure to capture everything. Jennifer's face was now very red. Her hands shook a little. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said to Robert. "This passenger has been difficult since he boarded. He's been demanding and rude." Marcus felt like he had been slapped. The lie was so big and so wrong that he almost could not believe she said it. "That's not true," he said. His voice was still calm but firmer now. "I have done nothing but ask politely for basic service. There are witnesses here who saw everything." "I'm a witness," Robert said immediately. "This man has been nothing but polite. You're the one who's been rude." "I'm a witness too," said the older woman who had turned around. Her name was Margaret Holmes. She was a retired teacher from Ohio. "I've been watching this whole thing. The young man did nothing wrong. You treated him terribly, miss." Jennifer looked around the cabin. She seemed surprised that other passengers were speaking up. She was used to getting away with this kind of behavior. "You're all ganging up on me," she said. Her voice got higher. "I'm just trying to do my job and everyone is making it difficult." Marcus pulled out his wallet from his pocket. He took out a business card and held it up. "My name is Marcus Wellington," he said calmly. "I'm the CEO of Wellington Technologies. I paid full price for this first-class ticket. I have been respectful and patient. I'm asking you one more time to treat me with the same respect you've shown every other passenger." Jennifer looked at the business card. Then she laughed again. This time she laughed so hard that tears came to her eyes. "Wellington Technologies?" she said between laughs. "You expect me to believe that? You're wearing a hoodie and jeans. You look like you can barely afford a coach ticket, let alone first class. That business card is probably fake." The cabin went completely silent. Even the sound of the airplane engines seemed to fade away. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. It was not anger exactly. It was sadness. Deep, heavy sadness. This woman could not even imagine that a black man in casual clothes could be successful. She could not see past his skin color and his comfortable clothing. In her mind, he did not belong here. He could not possibly be who he said he was. "The card is real," Marcus said quietly. "But you're right about one thing. It shouldn't matter who I am or what I do. Every passenger deserves respect. Every human being deserves dignity. You should treat me well because I'm a person, not because I'm rich." Sarah Chen felt tears in her own eyes as she recorded. She had seen discrimination before in her life as an Asian American woman, but watching it happen so openly to someone else made her heart hurt. She was glad she was recording this. The world needed to see what Marcus was experiencing. Jennifer crossed her arms tight across her chest. "I've had enough of this," she said. "You're being disruptive. If you don't calm down and stop causing problems, I'll have to report you to the captain. We can have security waiting for you when we land in London." Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. "I'm being disruptive?" he asked. "I've been sitting quietly in my seat. I've only asked for water and food. You're the one who's been hostile." "That's a lie," Jennifer said quickly. Her voice was getting loud now. "You've been aggressive since you boarded. You've been making unreasonable demands. You're trying to get free things by causing a scene." "That's absolutely not true," Robert said, standing up from his seat now. "I'm a lawyer, and I'm telling you right now that you're on very dangerous ground. This man has witnesses. I'm sure this plane has cameras. You need to stop this behavior immediately." Jennifer's eyes went wide when Robert said he was a lawyer. She seemed nervous for the first time. But then her face got hard again. "You don't scare me," she said to Robert. "You're just another passenger who thinks he knows how to do my job better than me." A male flight attendant appeared from the back of the plane. He had heard the loud voices and came to see what was wrong. His name was David Park. He was the head flight attendant for the entire plane. David was a Korean-American man who had worked for the airline for 20 years. He had seen a lot of problems on flights, but this sounded bad. "What's going on here?" David asked in a calm, professional voice. Jennifer turned to him quickly. "David, thank goodness you're here," she said. Her voice suddenly sounded sweet and innocent. "This passenger has been causing problems since takeoff. He's been demanding special treatment and making accusations against me. He's being very aggressive and difficult. I was just about to call you." David looked at Marcus. Marcus sat quietly in his seat with his hands folded in his lap. He did not look aggressive at all. He looked tired and sad. David had been doing this job long enough to know when something was not right. He looked around at the other passengers. Several of them were shaking their heads. Some looked angry. One woman was crying. "Sir," David said to Marcus gently, "can you please tell me your side of what happened?" Marcus nodded slowly. He was glad someone was finally willing to listen. "My name is Marcus Wellington," he began. "I boarded this flight about 90 minutes ago. From the moment I sat down, Ms. Morrison treated me differently than other passengers. She ignored my requests for water. She did not give me a menu or a warm towel like everyone else received. When I finally got her attention and asked politely for service, she was rude and dismissive. She told me I should be grateful for whatever I get. She said some people don't belong in first class. When I asked to speak with a supervisor, she refused. When I showed her my business card, she laughed and called it fake." David's face remained neutral, but his eyes showed concern. He turned to the other passengers. "Did anyone else witness these events?" he asked. "I did," Robert said immediately. "Everything he said is true. I watched the whole thing. Ms. Morrison has been openly discriminatory toward this gentleman." "I saw it too," Margaret said. "It was terrible to watch. She treated him like he was invisible. I have video of most of it on my phone," Sarah called out from her seat in the back. She held up her phone. "I started recording about 30 minutes ago when I saw what was happening." David's expression changed. He looked at Jennifer with disappointment and concern. "Jennifer, is this true?" he asked. Jennifer's face went from red to white. She looked scared now. "No," she said quickly. "They're all lying. They're all working together to get me in trouble. This man has been aggressive and hostile. He came at me in a threatening way. I felt unsafe. I never moved from my seat except to try to get something from the overhead bin," Marcus said. "And I only did that after asking for a menu that never came. I never threatened anyone. I never raised my voice until just now when I had to defend myself against false accusations." David looked at Jennifer for a long moment. He had worked with her for 3 years. He knew she had problems sometimes with certain passengers. There had been complaints before. The airline had sent her to diversity training twice, but the complaints always disappeared because there was never clear proof. Now there were multiple witnesses and video evidence. "Jennifer, I need you to go to the back galley and wait there," David said firmly. "I'm taking over this cabin. We'll discuss this further after we land." Jennifer's mouth dropped open. "You're believing them over me?" she asked. Her voice was full of shock and hurt. "I'm your colleague. We work together. I'm listening to multiple passengers who have no reason to lie," David said, "and I'll be reviewing any camera footage we have. Please go to the back now. That's an order." Jennifer looked around the cabin one more time. She saw all the faces staring at her. Some looked angry. Some looked disgusted. Some looked sad. She realized she had made a terrible mistake. But instead of apologizing, her pride took over. She pointed her finger at Marcus. "This is your fault," she said to him. Her voice shook with emotion. "You came on this plane looking for trouble. People like you always do. You want to play the victim and get special treatment." Time seemed to stop. Marcus stood frozen in the aisle with his hand slowly rising to touch his burning cheek. He could feel the heat from where Jennifer's palm had struck his face. His ear was ringing. For a moment, he could not quite believe what had just happened. A flight attendant had just hit him. A woman who was supposed to keep passengers safe had just assaulted him on an airplane. Jennifer stood with her hand still raised in the air. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth was open. She looked as shocked as everyone else at what she had just done. But only for a second. Then her face changed again. The fear came back. And with the fear came more lies. "He came at me," Jennifer shouted. Her voice was high and panicked. "You all saw it. He stood up and came toward me in a threatening way. I had to defend myself. I felt my life was in danger." "That's a lie," Robert shouted from across the aisle. He was on his feet now. The man was reaching for the overhead bin. He never moved toward you. You just assaulted him for no reason. I got it all on video, Sarah called out, still holding her phone up. Her hands were shaking, but she had captured everything. He never came near you. He just stood up. You hit him without any reason. Other passengers started yelling too. A man in the front called for someone to help Marcus. A woman demanded that Jennifer be arrested. The young couple looked frightened. Margaret was crying and saying, "Oh my goodness," over and over. The cabin had turned into chaos. David Park moved fast. He grabbed Jennifer's arm firmly but not roughly. "Jennifer, you need to come with me right now," he said. His voice was hard and serious. This was no longer a customer service problem. This was a crime. Someone had been assaulted on his airplane. Jennifer tried to pull away from David. "Let go of me," she said. "I was defending myself." "This is unfair. You should be restraining him, not me. You assaulted a passenger," David said. "You're coming to the back galley now." "That's not a request. That's an order." Jennifer's face crumpled. Tears started running down her cheeks. "I was scared," she cried. "He was coming at me. I felt threatened. Why doesn't anyone believe me?" "Because it's not true," David said. He started walking Jennifer toward the back of the plane. She fought him a little, but he was stronger. As they passed other passengers, people moved away from Jennifer like she was dangerous. Some people were recording on their phones now. This was going to be all over the internet soon. Marcus still stood in the aisle, touching his face. The red mark was getting darker. His cheek was swelling a little. It hurt, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional pain. He felt humiliated. He felt angry. He felt tired. So very tired. Tired of having to fight these battles. Tired of proving he belonged. Tired of being judged by his skin color before anyone knew his character. "Sir, please sit down," a female flight attendant said gently. She had come from the back when she heard the commotion. Her name was Lisa. She looked very worried. "I'm so sorry this happened. Are you okay? Do you need medical attention?" Marcus slowly lowered himself back into his seat. "I think I'm okay," he said quietly. But his voice shook a little. The shock was starting to wear off and the reality was sinking in. He had just been hit. On an airplane. In front of dozens of witnesses. Because a woman saw his skin color and his casual clothes and decided he did not deserve respect. "I'm a doctor," a man said, rushing over from a few rows back. His name was Dr. James Foster. He was a physician from Chicago flying to London for a medical conference. "Let me take a look at your face, please." Marcus nodded. Dr. Foster gently examined his cheek. He checked Marcus's eye to make sure there was no damage. He asked Marcus if he felt dizzy or nauseous. He checked for signs of a concussion even though the blow had not been that hard. "You're going to have some bruising," Dr. Foster said, "and your cheek will be sore for a few days. But there's no serious injury. I'll write a medical report about what I observed. You'll need that for any legal action you decide to take." "Thank you," Marcus said. His voice was barely above a whisper. Robert came over and sat in the empty seat next to Marcus. "I'm Robert Patterson," he said, holding out his hand. "I'm a corporate attorney from Boston. I want you to know that I will testify to everything I saw. That was assault. Clear and simple. And the discrimination before that was obvious to everyone watching." Marcus shook Robert's hand. "Thank you for speaking up," he said. "A lot of people see things like this and stay silent. Thank you for not being one of them." Sarah made her way up from the back of the cabin. She was still holding her phone. "I'm Sarah Chen," she said. "I'm a civil rights attorney from San Francisco. I have about 35 minutes of video on my phone. I captured the discrimination and the assault. I'll give this video to you and to the authorities. What happened to you was wrong. Completely wrong." Marcus felt tears trying to form in his eyes, but he held them back. He was overwhelmed by the kindness of these strangers. They had stood up for him. They had witnessed for him. They were offering to help him. In this terrible moment, their humanity shone through. "Thank you," Marcus said to Sarah. "Thank you so much." Margaret came over too. She held a cold bottle of water wrapped in a cloth napkin. "Put this on your cheek, dear," she said sweetly. "It will help with the swelling. I'm so sorry this happened to you. That woman should be ashamed of herself." Marcus took the cold compress and held it against his face. The coolness felt good against his hot, throbbing skin. "You're very kind," he said to Margaret. Up in the cockpit, the pilot had been notified about the incident. Captain Williams was a veteran pilot with 30 years of experience. He had dealt with many problems on flights over his career, but a flight attendant assaulting a passenger was new. This was serious. Very serious. He immediately radioed ahead to London Heathrow Airport. "Heathrow Tower, this is Flight 237, Captain Williams said into his radio. "We have a situation on board. A flight attendant has physically assaulted a first-class passenger. We will need airport police to meet the aircraft upon arrival. The flight attendant will need to be detained. The passenger may need medical assistance. Please have security and medical personnel ready." The voice from the tower came back immediately. "Copy that, Flight 237. Police and medical will be standing by. We're noting this in the official log. Can you confirm the passenger's condition?" "Passenger is conscious and alert," Captain Williams responded. "Facial injury but not severe according to a doctor on board. Multiple witnesses to the incident. We have approximately 5 hours until landing." "Understood, Flight 237. We'll have everything ready. Safe flight." Captain Williams put down the radio and rubbed his forehead. This was going to be a nightmare of paperwork and investigations. But more than that, he felt angry. One of his crew members had assaulted a passenger. That was unacceptable. It violated everything airlines stood for. Passenger safety was the #1 priority. Always. And now a passenger had been harmed by someone who was supposed to protect him. Back in the cabin, David had put Jennifer in the small galley at the very back of the plane. 2 other flight attendants stood with her to make sure she did not leave or cause more problems. Jennifer sat on a small fold-down seat with her face in her hands. She was crying hard now, but her tears were not tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity and fear. She was afraid of losing her job. She was afraid of going to jail. She was afraid of what people would think of her. "Why is everyone against me?" Jennifer sobbed. "I was just doing my job. That man was threatening. He was difficult. Why does no one believe me?" David stood with his arms crossed. He looked at Jennifer with disappointment and sadness. He had worked with her for 3 years. He had always thought she was a good person, maybe a little difficult sometimes, but generally good at her job. Now he realized he had been wrong, or maybe he had just not wanted to see the truth. "Jennifer, there are multiple witnesses who say the passenger did nothing wrong," David said carefully. "There's video evidence. The passenger never threatened you. He was polite the entire time. You discriminated against him from the moment he sat down. Multiple people saw it. And then you hit him. You assaulted a passenger. Do you understand how serious this is?" Jennifer looked up at David with red, swollen eyes. "But I felt threatened," she insisted. "Doesn't that matter?" "I felt unsafe. I was afraid." "Why did you feel threatened?" David asked. "What did he do that was threatening?" Jennifer opened her mouth, but no words came out. She could not answer the question. Because the truth was that Marcus had done nothing threatening. He had just been black. He had just been there, existing in a space where Jennifer thought he did not belong. And that had been enough to make her uncomfortable. Enough to make her cruel. Enough to make her violent. David saw the realization cross Jennifer's face. She knew the truth even if she did not want to admit it. "You're going to be detained when we land," David said quietly. "The police will be waiting. This is out of my hands now. This is a legal matter." Jennifer started crying harder. "Please," she begged. "Please don't let them arrest me. I made a mistake. I was scared. It was just instinct. Please, David, we're friends. Help me." The rest of the flight felt very long. Marcus tried to work on his laptop but could not focus. His cheek hurt. His head hurt. His heart hurt most of all. Every 20 minutes or so, David came by to check on him and make sure he had everything he needed. Other flight attendants also stopped by to apologize and offer their support. They looked embarrassed and sad about what their colleague had done. Marcus ate the salmon meal that David brought him. It was good, but he barely tasted it. Sarah sat in the empty seat next to him for a while. They talked about civil rights law and cases she had worked on. She told him about other incidents of discrimination she had seen and fought against. Her stories made Marcus feel less alone. This was not just about him. This was part of a bigger pattern that needed to change. "When we land, the police will want to interview everyone separately," Sarah explained. "Make sure you tell them everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out, and accept Dr. Foster's written medical report. That will be important evidence. Also, get copies of the airline's security camera footage as soon as possible. They're required to give it to you if you request it formally." Marcus nodded and made mental notes of everything Sarah said. He was grateful for her expertise. "Will you share the video you recorded?" he asked. "Absolutely," Sarah said. "I'll give it to the police first and then to your lawyer if you want. This video is clear evidence of what happened. Jennifer can claim whatever she wants, but the video doesn't lie." Robert also came over several times during the flight. He gave Marcus his business card and the names of good lawyers in London who specialized in assault cases. "Don't let the airline pressure you into a quick settlement," Robert advised. "What happened was serious. Make sure justice is done properly, and if you need any help or a witness statement from me, just call. I mean that." "Thank you," Marcus said sincerely. "You didn't have to get involved, but you did. That means a lot." "I have a teenage son," Robert said quietly. "He's black. My wife is black. I adopted him when he was 5. I've watched him face discrimination since he was little. I've seen people treat him differently because of his skin color. If I don't speak up when I see injustice, what kind of example am I setting for him? We all have to do better. We all have to stand up." Marcus felt his eyes get watery. He shook Robert's hand firmly. "Your son is lucky to have you," he said. Hours passed slowly. Marcus dozed off a few times but never slept deeply. His mind kept replaying the slap over and over. He kept feeling the sting on his face. He kept seeing the hate in Jennifer's eyes. But he also kept remembering the kindness of the other passengers. Good and bad all mixed together in one terrible experience. Finally, the pilot's voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into London Heathrow Airport. The weather is cloudy with light rain. Local time is 7:30 in the morning. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for landing." Marcus's stomach got tight. He knew what was waiting when they landed: police, questions, cameras probably. The media might already know about the incident. Someone might have sent a message from the plane's Wi-Fi. This was going to become very public very fast. The plane descended through thick clouds. Rain streaked across the windows. Marcus watched the English countryside appear below as they broke through the clouds. Green fields and small towns spread out in every direction. Normally, Marcus loved arriving in London. It was one of his favorite cities. But today he just wanted this to be over. The wheels touched the runway with a small bump. The engines roared as the pilot slowed the plane. They taxied toward the gate for several minutes. Marcus could see flashing lights outside. Police cars and airport security vehicles were parked near the gate. This was really happening. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated," the pilot announced. "We have an official matter to handle before regular deplaning can begin. Police will be boarding the aircraft. Please follow all instructions from law enforcement. Thank you for your patience." The plane stopped at the gate. The seatbelt sign turned off, but no one moved. Everyone waited. Marcus could feel dozens of eyes on him. Some passengers looked curious. Some looked sympathetic. Some looked worried. The cabin door opened. 4 police officers in dark uniforms walked onto the plane. They were led by a sergeant named William Hartley. He was a tall man with gray hair and a serious expression. He had been a police officer for 28 years and had seen many strange things at airports. But a flight attendant assaulting a passenger was unusual even for him. "Good morning, everyone," Sergeant Hartley said in a loud, clear voice. "I'm Sergeant Hartley with the airport police. We're here to investigate an incident that occurred during this flight. We'll need to speak with several people. Please remain patient while we sort this out." 2 officers walked toward the back of the plane where Jennifer was still confined in the galley. The other 2 officers came toward Marcus. Sergeant Hartley approached Marcus's seat directly. "Mr. Wellington?" Sergeant Hartley asked. "Yes, that's me," Marcus said quietly. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to come with us," Sergeant Hartley said. His voice was professional and neutral. "We need to get your statement about what happened. We also need to photograph your injury and collect evidence. Are you willing to cooperate with our investigation?" "Yes, of course," Marcus said. He stood up slowly. His legs felt stiff from sitting so long. He grabbed his small suitcase from the overhead bin. "I'm a witness," Robert called out. "I saw everything from beginning to end." "I'm also a witness," Sarah said. "And I have video evidence on my phone." "I'm a doctor who examined the victim," Dr. Foster added. "I have a written medical report." Sergeant Hartley looked around at all the people volunteering to help. This was going to be a strong case if they had this many witnesses plus video evidence. "Thank you all," he said. "We'll need statements from each of you. Please remain in your seats for now. We'll interview you one at a time." Marcus followed Sergeant Hartley off the plane. The other officer walked beside him. They led Marcus through the jet bridge and into a private room in the terminal. The room was small with a table, several chairs, and a camera mounted on the wall. Everything in here would be recorded. "Please have a seat, Mr. Wellington," Sergeant Hartley said, pointing to a chair. "Can I get you anything? Water, coffee?" "Water would be nice, thank you," Marcus said. He sat down and put his suitcase beside the chair. His whole body felt tired. The other officer brought a bottle of water and set it in front of Marcus. Sergeant Hartley sat down across the table and pulled out a notebook and a small recorder. "I'm going to record this interview if that's okay with you," he said. "It helps us keep accurate records." "That's fine," Marcus agreed. Sergeant Hartley pressed the record button. "This is Sergeant William Hartley, conducting an interview with Marcus Wellington regarding an assault incident on Flight 237 from New York to London. Date is November 2nd. Time is 7:53 a.m. Mr. Wellington, before we begin, I need to inform you that you are not under arrest and you are not being charged with any crime. You are the alleged victim in this case. You're free to leave at any time, but we hope you'll help us by giving a full statement. Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand," Marcus said. "Good. Now please tell me in your own words everything that happened from the moment you boarded the flight until the moment of the assault." "Take your time. Include every detail you can remember, even small things that might not seem important." Marcus took a deep breath and began his story. He told Sergeant Hartley about boarding the plane and noticing Jennifer's cold attitude immediately. He described how she ignored his requests for service while treating other passengers warmly. He explained the multiple times he asked politely for water and food. He repeated Jennifer's exact words when she said some people don't belong in first class. He talked about showing his business card and Jennifer laughing at it. He described standing up to reach for the overhead bin. And then he described the slap. The sound of it, the pain of it, the shock of it. Sergeant Hartley listened carefully and took notes. He did not interrupt. He let Marcus tell the whole story at his own pace. When Marcus finished, Sergeant Hartley asked several follow-up questions. Did Marcus ever touch Jennifer? No. Did Marcus ever raise his voice before the slap? No, only after, when he had to defend himself. Did Marcus ever threaten Jennifer in any way? Absolutely not. "Mr. Wellington, I need to photograph your injury," Sergeant Hartley said. "May I?" Marcus nodded. Sergeant Hartley took out a camera and took several photos of Marcus's face from different angles. The bruise was very clear now. Dark purple and blue with the clear outline of a handprint. The photos would be powerful evidence. "I also have a medical report from a doctor on the plane," Marcus said. He pulled out the paper Dr. Foster had given him before landing. It described the injury in medical terms and confirmed it was consistent with being slapped. Sergeant Hartley took the report and read it carefully. "This is helpful, thank you," he said. He made a copy of the report for the file. There was a knock on the door. Another officer came in and whispered something to Sergeant Hartley. The sergeant nodded and turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Wellington, we've taken the flight attendant into custody. Her name is Jennifer Morrison." Marcus left the airport in a taxi 2 hours after the plane had landed. He was exhausted. The police had finally finished with him after taking his full statement and photos of his injury. They told him to go to his hotel and rest. They would call him if they needed anything else. The taxi drove through the rainy London streets. Marcus stared out the window without really seeing anything. His mind was far away. He thought about calling his family back home. His mother would be worried when she heard what happened. His sister would be angry. His business partner would want to know if he was okay to do the meetings they had scheduled. But first, Marcus just needed to sleep. He checked into his hotel room at a nice place in central London. The room was clean and quiet. Marcus dropped his suitcase on the floor and lay down on the bed without even taking off his shoes. He closed his eyes and fell asleep immediately. While Marcus slept, something was happening online. Sarah Chen had arrived at her London hotel and immediately uploaded the video she had recorded to a secure cloud storage. She sent copies to the police as promised. But she also sent a copy to a friend who worked as a journalist for a major news network. Sarah believed the world needed to see what had happened. The journalist, a woman named Patricia Mills, watched the video 3 times. Her mouth hung open in shock. The discrimination was obvious. The assault was clear, and the victim had been so calm and polite through it all. This was an important story. This was news that people needed to see. Patricia immediately called her editor. "I have a video you need to see right now," she said. "It's a flight attendant assaulting a black passenger after treating him with obvious discrimination for over an hour. The video is clear. There are multiple witnesses, and the victim is Marcus Wellington, the tech billionaire." The editor told Patricia to send the video immediately. Within 30 minutes, the news network had verified the video was real. They contacted the airline for comment. They tried to reach Marcus, but his phone was turned off while he slept. They decided to run the story anyway. The video was too important to hold. At 6 p.m. London time, the story broke on television news. The headline read, "Billionaire assaulted by flight attendant in shocking video." The news anchor described what happened and then played the video. Viewers across Britain watched as Jennifer ignored Marcus, spoke to him rudely, refused him service, and then finally slapped him across the face. The anchor pointed out that Marcus never did anything aggressive. He just stood up slowly and Jennifer hit him. The story spread like fire. Within an hour, it was on every major news channel in Britain. Within 2 hours, American news networks picked it up. By midnight, it was trending worldwide on every social media platform. People shared the video millions of times. They were outraged. They were angry. They demanded justice. Marcus woke up 8 hours later to his phone buzzing nonstop. He had 47 missed calls. He had over 200 text messages. He had emails flooding his inbox. Confused and still tired, Marcus picked up his phone and started reading the messages. His mother, "Baby, I just saw the news. Are you okay? Call me right away. I'm so worried." His sister, "Marcus, what happened?" The video is everywhere. "I'm so angry I could scream." "Are you hurt? Do you need me to fly to London?" His business partner, "Man, I can't believe what I just watched. Everyone is talking about it. The whole world knows what happened to you. Call me when you can." Marcus sat up in bed, his heart pounding. He turned on the television. His own face appeared on the screen. The news was showing the video of him being slapped. Then they showed a photo of him from his company website. The news anchor was talking about discrimination against black people in the travel industry. They were discussing how wealth does not protect someone from racism. They were calling for the flight attendant to face serious charges. Marcus felt dizzy. This had become huge. The private pain he had experienced was now public for the whole world to see. Part of him felt exposed and vulnerable, but another part of him felt something different. This was bigger than just him now. This was a conversation the world needed to have. He called his mother first. She cried when she heard his voice. "Are you okay, baby?" she asked. "Your face looked so hurt in that video, and the way that woman treated you. It broke my heart." "I'm okay, Mama," Marcus said softly. "My cheek is sore, but I'm fine." "I'm more tired than hurt." "You were so calm," his mother said. "Even when she hit you, you didn't hit back. You didn't yell. You just stood there. I was so proud of you and so sad for you at the same time." They talked for 20 minutes. His mother made him promise to take care of himself and not let the stress make him sick. After he hung up, Marcus called his sister and then his business partner. Everyone wanted to make sure he was okay. Everyone was angry about what had happened. Everyone wanted to help in some way. Marcus turned his phone to silent and took a shower. The hot water felt good on his tired body. He looked at himself in the mirror afterward. The bruise on his face was dark purple and blue. The shape of Jennifer's hand was still clearly visible. It would be there for days, maybe weeks. Every time Marcus looked in the mirror, he would be reminded of what happened. Marcus got dressed and ordered room service. While he ate, he looked at social media on his laptop. The video had been viewed over 50 million times. People were commenting by the thousands. Most comments supported Marcus and condemned Jennifer. But some comments were ugly. Some people said Marcus must have done something to deserve being hit. Some people said he was playing the victim for attention. Some people said things about his race that were so hateful Marcus had to close the laptop for a moment and breathe deeply. But the supportive comments outnumbered the hateful ones by far. People shared their own stories of discrimination. Black travelers described being treated badly on planes, in hotels, in restaurants. They said this happened all the time, but usually no one believed them or cared. They thanked Marcus for showing the world what they experienced. They said his video gave them courage to speak up about their own experiences. Civil rights leaders began calling for action. They demanded that airlines do better training. They called for policies to protect passengers from discrimination. They said what happened to Marcus was not an isolated incident, but part of a bigger pattern of racial bias in the travel industry. The airline released a statement at 8 p.m. We are deeply sorry for the incident that occurred on Flight 237 from New York to London. The behavior shown in the video does not represent our values or standards. The employee involved has been terminated immediately. We are cooperating fully with law enforcement. We have reached out to Mr. Wellington to apologize directly and discuss how we can make this right. We are committed to ensuring all passengers are treated with dignity and respect, regardless of race, ethnicity, or any other characteristic. But the public was not satisfied with just an apology. People called for boycotts of the airline. They demanded to know why Jennifer had still been working there despite previous complaints. They wanted to know what training the airline provided about discrimination and bias. They accused the airline of only caring now because the incident was caught on video and went viral. The airline's stock price dropped 5% when the market opened the next morning. Investors were worried about the damage to the company's reputation. The CEO held an emergency meeting with senior leadership. They knew this was a crisis that could hurt the company badly if they did not handle it right. Meanwhile, Jennifer was released from police custody on bail. She was charged with assault. She was ordered not to leave the country and to return for a court hearing in 2 weeks. Jennifer went home to her small apartment in London. She lived alone. She had no family nearby. Her phone rang constantly with calls from reporters wanting her side of the story. She did not answer. Jennifer sat on her couch and watched the news coverage of the incident. She saw herself in the video hitting Marcus. She looked like a monster. The whole world was calling her racist. She was getting death threats on social media. People found out where she lived and sent angry messages. Someone spray-painted racist on the wall outside her building. Jennifer felt sorry for herself. She thought everyone was being too harsh. She thought people did not understand her side. She convinced herself that she really had felt threatened, even though deep down she knew the truth. She had judged Marcus by his skin color and his clothes. She had treated him badly because of her own prejudices. And when he stood up for himself, she had lashed out in anger and shame. Jennifer's union representative called and told her that the union could not help her. The video evidence was too clear. There was no way to defend what she had done. Her best option was to plead guilty to assault, accept her punishment, and try to move on with her life. The representative said she would probably never work in aviation again. Her career was over. Jennifer hung up the phone and cried. Not because she felt sorry for Marcus, not because she understood the pain she had caused, but because she felt sorry for herself, because she was facing consequences for her actions, because her life was ruined and she blamed Marcus for it instead of taking responsibility for her own choices. 3 days after the incident, Marcus held a press conference at his hotel in London. Reporters from around the world filled the conference room. Cameras flashed as Marcus walked to the podium. The bruise on his face had faded a little but was still clearly visible. He had decided not to cover it with makeup. He wanted people to see what had happened to him. Marcus stood at the microphone and looked out at all the faces. He took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice was calm and steady. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I want to talk to you today about what happened to me on Flight 237. But more importantly, I want to talk about what happens to millions of people every day who look like me." The room was completely silent. Everyone listened. "When I boarded that plane, I was not thinking about my race," Marcus continued. "I was thinking about my business meetings in London. I was thinking about the work I needed to do on my laptop. I was just a man getting on a plane. But to Jennifer Morrison, the flight attendant, I was not a man. I was not a person. I was just a black face that did not belong in first class." Marcus paused and looked down at his notes. "From the moment I sat down, I was treated differently. I was ignored. I was dismissed. I was spoken to with contempt. And when I finally stood up for myself in the most polite way possible, I was physically assaulted. All of this was caught on video. All of this was witnessed by dozens of passengers. The evidence is clear and undeniable." A reporter raised her hand, but Marcus continued speaking. "Some people have asked me if I think this was about race."
The answer is yes.
Absolutely yes. Jennifer Morrison looked at my skin color and my casual clothes and decided I did not deserve respect. She decided I must not belong in first class. She decided I was somehow less than the white passengers around me. That is racism, plain and simple. Marcus's voice got stronger. But here is what I want everyone to understand. This does not just happen to me. This happens to black travelers every single day. We are followed in airport shops because people assume we are stealing. We are stopped and questioned more than other passengers. We are treated with suspicion and hostility. And when we complain, we are told we are being too sensitive. We are told we are imagining things. We are told to calm down. The reporters were writing frantically, trying to capture every word. The video of what happened to me has been viewed over 100 million times now, Marcus said. People are shocked. They say they cannot believe someone would act this way. But black people are not shocked. We have lived this our entire lives. The only difference is that this time it was caught on camera. This time there is proof that cannot be denied. Marcus looked directly into the cameras. I am not telling this story for sympathy. I am telling this story because it needs to be told. I am using my voice because I am privileged enough to have a platform. But there are millions of people who experience discrimination and have no platform. No one listens to them. No one believes them. This case is for them. A reporter called out a question. Mr. Wellington, what do you want to happen to Jennifer Morrison? Marcus thought for a moment before answering. I want justice, he said. I want her to be held accountable for what she did. But more than that, I want systemic change. I want airlines to do real anti-racism training, not just checkbox exercises. I want complaints of discrimination to be taken seriously and investigated properly. I want security cameras on all flights so that when discrimination happens, there is proof. I want policies that protect passengers and punish employees who abuse their power. Another reporter asked, Are you going to sue the airline? Yes, Marcus said firmly. My lawyers are preparing a lawsuit. We will show that the airline knew about previous complaints against Jennifer Morrison, but did not take them seriously. We will show that their training programs were inadequate. We will show that they created an environment where discrimination could happen, and we will demand not just money, but real policy changes across the entire industry. The questions continued for 30 minutes. Marcus answered each one thoughtfully and honestly. He talked about his childhood growing up poor. He talked about building his company through hard work. He talked about how success had not protected him from racism. He talked about the sadness and exhaustion of constantly having to prove his humanity. When the press conference ended, Marcus felt drained but also relieved. He had said what needed to be said. Now it was time to let the legal process work. While Marcus was speaking to reporters in London, investigators back in New York were digging into Jennifer Morrison's employment history. They requested all her personnel files from the airline. What they found was disturbing. Jennifer had worked for the airline for 15 years. In that time, there had been 7 formal complaints against her from passengers. 5 of those complaints came from black passengers. 2 came from Asian passengers. All of them described similar behavior. Being ignored, receiving poor service, being spoken to rudely. One black passenger had complained that Jennifer told him he should be grateful to even be on the plane. The airline had investigated each complaint. But in every case, they had accepted Jennifer's explanation that the passenger was being difficult or unreasonable. They sent Jennifer to diversity training twice. But the training was just a 4-hour online course that she could complete at home. There was no real accountability, no consequences. Jennifer learned that she could treat passengers badly and get away with it as long as there was no video proof. Investigators also found emails from other flight attendants who had worked with Jennifer. Several emails mentioned concerns about her attitude toward passengers of color. One flight attendant wrote to a supervisor, I am worried about Jennifer's behavior. I have seen her treat black and Asian passengers differently than white passengers. Someone needs to talk to her before something bad happens. The supervisor had responded, Thank you for your concern. We will address this with Jennifer. But there was no record that anyone ever addressed it. The email was filed away and forgotten. Until now. When this information became public, the outcry was enormous. People were furious that the airline had received multiple warnings and done nothing. They accused the airline of caring more about avoiding problems than protecting passengers. They said the airline was complicit in Jennifer's discrimination. The airline's stock dropped another 3%. The CEO appeared on television to do damage control. We take these revelations very seriously, the CEO said. We failed this passenger and we failed others before him. We are reviewing all our policies and procedures. We are implementing new mandatory training for all employees. We are creating an independent review board to investigate discrimination complaints. We are committed to doing better. But critics said the airline's promises were empty. They pointed out that airlines had been promising to do better for years, but nothing ever really changed. They said real change only happened when there were serious financial and legal consequences. Civil rights organizations joined the growing calls for accountability. The NAACP issued a statement supporting Marcus and calling for federal investigations into discrimination in the airline industry. The Southern Poverty Law Center offered to help with the legal case. Black Lives Matter organized protests at airports across the country. People held signs that said Black Lives Matter at 30,000 feet too, and first-class racism. The story had become much bigger than just one incident on one flight. It had become a national conversation about racism, privilege, and accountability. People were examining their own biases. Companies were reviewing their policies. The conversation was uncomfortable but necessary. Jennifer Morrison watched all of this from her apartment. She had not left her home in days. Reporters camped outside her building trying to get a statement from her. People recognized her face from the video and shouted insults at her on the street. She had received hundreds of death threats online. The police had to investigate some of the threats because they were so specific and violent. Jennifer's lawyer, a public defender named Michael Ross, advised her to stay quiet. "Anything you say right now will be used against you," Michael told her. "The court of public opinion has already convicted you. Let's focus on the actual legal case." But Jennifer felt desperate to explain herself. She felt like everyone had the story wrong. She wanted to tell people that she was not a bad person. She had just made a mistake. One bad moment did not define her whole life. In the interview, Jennifer claimed she had been under a lot of stress that day. She said her father was sick and she was worried about him. She said Marcus had made her uncomfortable with his aggressive body language. She said she felt threatened and acted on instinct. She said she was sorry for hitting Marcus but insisted she was not racist. "I have black friends," Jennifer said in the interview. "I am not a racist person. I just made a bad decision in a stressful moment." The interview made everything worse. People were outraged by Jennifer's excuses. Having black friends did not mean someone could not be racist. Being stressed did not excuse assault. And multiple witnesses had testified that Marcus's body language was not aggressive at all. Jennifer was caught lying again. 3 months passed. Marcus returned to New York and tried to focus on his work and his new foundation. He named it the Equal Skies Initiative. The foundation's mission was to fight discrimination in travel and ensure every passenger was treated with dignity, regardless of their race. Marcus hired a team of lawyers, researchers, and advocates. They began documenting cases of discrimination and pushing airlines to change their policies. The media attention slowly faded as other news stories took over the headlines. But Marcus never forgot. The bruise on his face had healed completely, but the emotional wound remained. Every time he had to fly somewhere, he felt anxiety. Every time a flight attendant approached him, he felt tense. The incident had changed him in ways he was still discovering. In February, 3 months after the assault, Jennifer Morrison's criminal trial began at the Crown Court in London. Marcus flew back to London for the trial. He stayed at the same hotel where he had held his press conference. The memories of that difficult time came rushing back. The courtroom was packed on the first day of the trial. Reporters filled the gallery. Victims' rights advocates attended to show support for Marcus. The judge, a woman named Justice Helen Crawford, entered and everyone stood. Justice Crawford was known for being fair but strict. She did not tolerate nonsense in her courtroom. Jennifer sat at the defense table with her lawyer, Michael Ross. She wore a plain blue dress and had pulled her hair back. She looked thin and tired. The past 3 months had been hard on her. She had lost her job, her reputation, and most of her friends. People recognized her everywhere she went. She had been forced to move to a different apartment after someone threw a brick through her window. The prosecutor was a man named James Abbott. He was experienced and had a reputation for being thorough. James stood and addressed the court. "Your Honor, the Crown will prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Jennifer Morrison committed assault against Marcus Wellington on November 2nd aboard Flight 237. We have video evidence, eyewitness testimony, and medical documentation. The evidence is clear and compelling. Ms. Morrison struck Mr. Wellington across the face without provocation or justification. Michael Ross stood to give his opening statement. Your Honor, my client made a terrible mistake in a moment of fear. She believed Mr. Wellington was moving toward her aggressively. She reacted out of instinct to protect herself. While we acknowledge that Ms. Morrison struck Mr. Wellington, we will show that she acted out of genuine fear, not malice. She deserves compassion and understanding, not the hatred that has been directed at her. Justice Crawford listened to both sides and then called for the first witness. Marcus was called to the stand. He walked to the witness box and placed his hand on the Bible to swear the oath. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, Marcus said. James Abbott approached the witness stand. Mr. Wellington, please tell the court what happened on November 2nd when you boarded Flight 237. Marcus took a deep breath and began his testimony. He told the same story he had told the police and the press, but this time he was under oath in a court of law. He described every detail. The cold looks from Jennifer, the ignored requests for service, the rude comments, the discrimination that built and built until it exploded into violence. When Ms. Morrison hit you, where were you standing? James asked. I was standing next to my seat, Marcus answered. I had just stood up to reach for the overhead bin. I needed to get my reading glasses from my bag. How far away from Ms. Morrison were you? At least 3 feet. Maybe 4. I was not close to her at all. Did you make any threatening moves toward her? No, I never moved toward her. I just stood up next to my seat. Did you raise your voice or use threatening language? No. I was speaking in a normal, calm voice. James played the video on a large screen in the courtroom. Everyone watched as the events unfolded exactly as Marcus described. The video was silent, but the actions were clear. Marcus stood up slowly. Jennifer was several feet away. There was no aggressive movement. No threatening gesture, just a man standing up. And then Jennifer's hand flying forward and striking Marcus's face. The sound of the slap echoed through the courtroom even though the video had no audio. Several people in the gallery gasped. Justice Crawford's expression remained neutral, but her eyes showed concern. Mr. Wellington, how did you feel when Ms. Morrison struck you? James asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I felt shocked, he finally said, and hurt, and humiliated. I felt like I'd been assaulted for no reason other than the color of my skin. Michael Ross stood for cross-examination. Mr. Wellington, you claim that Ms. Morrison discriminated against you because you are black. But is it possible she was just having a bad day? Is it possible she treated you poorly for reasons that had nothing to do with race? Marcus looked at Michael directly. I have been black in America for 52 years, he said. I know what discrimination looks like. I know the difference between someone having a bad day and someone treating me badly because of my race. Ms. Morrison treated every white passenger with kindness and respect. She only treated me with contempt. That is not a coincidence. But you cannot know what was in my client's heart, Michael pressed. You cannot know her true motivations. I know what I experienced, Marcus said firmly. I know what I saw, and I know what dozens of other witnesses saw. The pattern was clear. The discrimination was obvious. Michael had no good response to that. He sat down and let Marcus step down from the witness stand. Over the next 3 days, the prosecution called other witnesses. Robert Patterson, the businessman who had witnessed everything from across the aisle, testified that Marcus had been polite and calm throughout the flight while Jennifer was openly hostile. Sarah Chen, the lawyer who recorded the video, testified about what she observed and provided her video as evidence. Dr. James Foster, the physician who examined Marcus, testified about the injury and confirmed it was consistent with being slapped hard across the face. David Park, the head flight attendant who had been on the plane, provided damning testimony. He described how Jennifer had been sent to diversity training twice before because of complaints. He testified that he had personally witnessed Jennifer making inappropriate comments about passengers of color in the past. He said the airline should have done more to address her behavior before it led to violence. Did you believe Mr. Wellington posed any threat to Ms. Morrison? James Abbott asked David. No, David said firmly. None whatsoever. Mr. Wellington was one of the calmest passengers I have ever seen in a difficult situation. He was respectful even when being disrespected. There was absolutely no justification for Ms. Morrison to hit him. The defense called Jennifer to the stand on the 4th day. She walked slowly to the witness box. Her hands shook as she swore the oath. Michael Ross asked her to tell her side of the story. I was having a very difficult day, Jennifer began. Her voice was soft and shaky. My father had just been diagnosed with cancer. I was distracted and stressed. When Mr. Wellington boarded, I did not mean to ignore him. I was just overwhelmed. But you did ignore him? Michael asked gently. I suppose I did, Jennifer admitted, but not on purpose. Not because of his race. I was just not thinking clearly. James Abbott stood for cross-examination. He was not gentle. Ms. Morrison, you say you were distracted and stressed. Yet you managed to serve every other first-class passenger with a smile. You brought them drinks and meals. You chatted with them. You were quite attentive to everyone except Mr. Wellington. Can you explain that? Jennifer looked down at her hands. I do not know, she said quietly. I cannot explain it. Is it because Mr. Wellington is black? James asked directly. No, Jennifer said quickly. I am not racist. I have black friends. I have served many black passengers over my career. James held up a folder. I have here 7 complaints filed against you over your 15-year career. 5 of those complaints came from black passengers, 2 from Asian passengers. All of them describe similar behavior to what Mr. Wellington experienced. Does that sound like someone who is not racist? Jennifer's face turned red. Those complaints were investigated and dismissed, she said defensively. They were dismissed because there was no video evidence, James said. But now we have video. We can all see what you did. We can see the discrimination. We can see the assault. You cannot hide behind excuses anymore, Miss Morrison. Jennifer started crying. I made a mistake, she sobbed. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Are you sorry you hit Mr. Wellington, or are you sorry you got caught? James asked. Michael Ross stood up. Objection. The prosecutor is badgering the witness. Sustained, Justice Crawford said. Mr. Abbott, please rephrase your question. James nodded. Ms. Morrison, when you hit Mr. Wellington, did you believe your life was in danger? Jennifer wiped her eyes. I thought he was coming at me, she said. I was scared. Jennifer watched the video. Her face went pale. The video showed clearly that Marcus never moved toward her. He simply stood up next to his seat, several feet away from her. There was no possible way to interpret his movement as threatening. I thought, Jennifer stammered. In the moment I felt scared. Or in the moment. Marcus left the courthouse after the sentencing feeling empty. He had gotten the justice he wanted. Jennifer had been convicted. She had been punished. But somehow it did not feel like enough. The criminal case was over, but the civil lawsuit was still ongoing. And more importantly, the work of creating real change was just beginning. Over the next 6 months, Marcus threw himself into building the Equal Skies initiative. The foundation grew quickly. They hired researchers to study discrimination patterns in the travel industry. They collected data on complaints filed by passengers of color. They discovered that thousands of incidents happened every year, but most were never reported or were dismissed by airlines as misunderstandings. The foundation created a hotline where passengers could report discrimination. They provided legal support to victims who wanted to file complaints or lawsuits. They developed anti-racism training programs that were actually effective, not just boxes to check. They worked with airlines to implement better policies for handling discrimination complaints. And they pushed for security cameras on all flights so that when incidents occurred, there would be evidence. Some airlines resisted the changes. They said cameras would violate passenger privacy. They said better training was too expensive. They said the problem was not as big as activists claimed, but Marcus and his team kept pushing. They used media attention to shine a light on the issue. They organized campaigns to pressure airlines to do better. They worked with lawmakers to propose new regulations. Slowly, things began to change. Several major airlines announced new anti-discrimination policies. They created independent review boards to investigate complaints. They implemented mandatory training for all employees, not just flight attendants, but also gate agents, pilots, and management. They installed security cameras in cabins. They created transparent processes for handling complaints so that victims could track what happened to their cases. The changes were not perfect. Some airlines did the bare minimum required. Some employees resented the training and saw it as a waste of time. But it was progress. Real progress. Marcus knew that changing hearts and minds took time. Changing systems and policies was just the first step. Meanwhile, Marcus's civil lawsuit against the airline moved forward. His lawyers discovered during the discovery process that the airline had known about Jennifer's problematic behavior for years. They had received multiple complaints but had never taken serious action. They had sent her to basic diversity training, but had not followed up to ensure the training made a difference. They had prioritized avoiding bad publicity over protecting passengers. The airline's lawyers tried to settle out of court. They offered Marcus $1 million to drop the lawsuit and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Marcus refused. "This is not about money," he told his lawyer, Thomas. "This is about accountability. I want the truth to come out. I want other passengers to know what happened. I want the airline to admit they failed." The airline increased their offer to $3 million, then $5 million, then $10 million. Each time Marcus said no. Finally, his lawyer sat him down for a serious conversation. "Marcus, they are offering you $15 million, Thomas said. "That is a lot of money. You could do a lot of good with that money through your foundation." Marcus thought about it carefully. $15 million would fund his foundation's work for years. It would help thousands of people. But accepting the settlement would mean signing away his right to talk about the case publicly. The airline would issue a statement saying they settled without admitting wrongdoing. The truth would be buried. "What if we negotiate different terms?" Marcus asked. "What if I accept the money but refuse the non-disclosure agreement? What if they have to admit fault publicly?" Thomas smiled. "That is brilliant. Let me propose it." The negotiations went back and forth for weeks. Finally, the airline agreed to a settlement. They would pay Marcus $20 million. They would publicly admit that their policies and training had been inadequate. They would commit to implementing all of the Equal Skies Initiative's recommended policy changes, and Marcus would be free to talk about the case and use it as an example in his advocacy work. Marcus donated the entire $20 million to the Equal Skies Initiative. He did not keep a single penny for himself. The money would fund the foundation's work for years and help countless travelers who faced discrimination. When the settlement was announced, the media coverage was huge. People praised Marcus for his integrity and his commitment to change over personal gain. The airline's admission of fault was seen as a major victory for victims' rights. Other airlines rushed to announce their own policy changes, not wanting to be seen as behind the curve. 8 months after the assault, Marcus was invited to speak at a major aviation industry conference. Standing before hundreds of airline executives, pilots, flight attendants, and industry leaders, Marcus shared his story once again. But this time he also shared hope. "What happened to me was wrong," Marcus said, "but something good has come from it. We are having conversations that should have happened years ago. We are making changes that should have been made long ago. We are finally acknowledging that discrimination in travel is real and harmful and unacceptable." Marcus continued, "I do not hate Jennifer Morrison. I feel sorry for her. She was raised in a society that taught her to see people like me as less than. She worked for a company that did not give her the tools to overcome those biases. She made terrible choices and she is paying the price. But she is not the only villain in this story. The real villains are the systems that allow discrimination to continue, the policies that dismiss complaints, the training that checks boxes but does not change hearts, the culture that values profit over people." The audience was silent, listening intently. "My hope is that every person in this room will go back to their companies and ask hard questions," Marcus said. "Ask whether your policies actually protect passengers or just protect the company from lawsuits. Ask whether your training actually changes behavior or just covers your legal obligations. Ask whether you would want your children to be treated the way passengers of color are sometimes treated. And then commit to doing better." When Marcus finished his speech, the audience stood and applauded for 5 minutes. Many people had tears in their eyes. Several airline CEOs approached Marcus afterward to thank him and ask for his foundation's help in improving their companies. 1 year after the incident, Marcus was invited to meet with Jennifer Morrison. She had completed her community service working at a racial justice organization. She had attended counseling and claimed to have learned a lot about her own biases. She wanted to apologize to Marcus in person. Marcus was hesitant at first. He did not need her apology to heal, but his therapist encouraged him to consider it. "Forgiveness is not about her," his therapist said. "It is about you letting go of anger and pain. You do not have to forgive her, but meeting her might give you closure." They met in a private room at a mediation center. Jennifer looked different than she had during the trial. She had gained some weight back. Her hair was different. She seemed less angry and defensive, more humble and sad. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Jennifer said quietly. She could not look Marcus in the eye. "I know I do not deserve your time or your attention." Marcus nodded but said nothing. He wanted to hear what she had to say. "I want to apologize for what I did to you," Jennifer continued. Her voice shook. "I treated you terribly. I discriminated against you. I hit you. I lied about you. I tried to ruin your reputation to save myself. Everything I did was wrong. Completely wrong." Jennifer finally looked up at Marcus. Her eyes were red and full of tears. "I have spent the past year learning about racism and bias. I worked with people at the Racial Justice Center who shared their stories with me. Stories like yours. Stories of being treated as less than human because of skin color. And I finally understand the pain I caused, not just to you but to all the other passengers I treated badly over the years." "Why did you do it?" Marcus asked. "Why did you treat me that way?" Jennifer thought for a long moment. "I think I felt threatened by you," she admitted. "You were confident, successful. You belonged in first class more than I belonged in my job. And instead of examining my own insecurities, I took them out on you. I saw your skin color and your casual clothes, and I decided you did not deserve respect. I was wrong. So completely wrong." Marcus listened but did not respond immediately. He was processing her words and trying to determine if they were genuine. "I do not expect you to forgive me," Jennifer said. "I have not forgiven myself. I lost my career, my reputation, and my self-respect. I deserve all of that. But I want you to know that I am trying to be better. I am working with young flight attendants to help them avoid making the mistakes I made. I'm sharing my story as a warning. I am trying to turn my terrible actions into something that might help someone else." Marcus took a deep breath. He thought about all the anger he had carried for the past year. The hurt, the humiliation, the exhaustion of fighting for justice. And then he thought about the good that had come from his pain, the foundation he had built, the policies that had changed, the conversations that had started, the lives that had been helped.